deck, on the bathing platform, you'll find the gas locker to the port side, and there's a padlock that secures it. It's always recommended to turn the gas off when it's not in use. The padlock number is 888. Open the gas locker lid and you'll find 2 gas bottles inside. You'll also find a bottle of cleaning material. Certainly don't drink this or spray it near your face, but this, after a few pumps of the handle, allows you to clean the hull of the boat and any other parts of the outside of the boat with great ease. Water it, spray it on, brush it down, and then hose it off, and the boat comes up clean very, very quickly indeed. To turn the gas on, this one is connected to the left-hand one. Simply turn the nozzle at the top there, tap, and this turns the gas on. And the secret about boats is, if you're not using the gas, then turn it off. Certainly never have it on overnight. If you had to change the bottles, there's a spanner here which you would simply use to, after the gas has been turned off, to turn this, and this has a left-handed thread, so you turn it the opposite way that you'd normally turn. So if we continue along the back of the boat, you'll see that you've got the tender on there if you're going to use it, and this is actually secured in place with another padlock on a chain. And if we can just find the padlock itself, this is also the same arrangements with 8888. The key you will find on the normal key. The stern of the boat, particularly when you're going stern to, and there's some more sausage fenders on the side of the boat in the fender baskets that you can use to increase the protection there as well. On the side of the boat you'll find 3 large ball fenders, and then on the bow there's a further 2. These need adjusting for the height of the mooring that you are attending, and providing you use an easy clove hitch knot to lift it up and down, and not like the knot that I'm showing you, then it will be quite simple to raise and lower the fender. As we look down the port side, you'll notice that there's 2 sausage fenders used to provide additional protection along this particular pontoon, and this knot here is in fact the clove hitch, which is very, very easy to adjust indeed. There's another example of it here. The boat can be accessed from the side using these footholes, and stepping up here, and you can actually release this by pulling the pin on this, and this cable will actually drop down, allowing access onto the decks. When the sausage fenders are not in use, stow them in the fender baskets and put a nice neat little loop round there, and then tie them off so that they don't get blown off in the wind or taken by somebody who's passing. The mud weight winch sometimes causes some people a problem or two, but this shouldn't really happen, as it's quite straightforward to use, as we will demonstrate. First of all, open the chain locker, and inside you'll find the handle for the winch itself. Place the handle into the centre, make certain the lock is released, and then turn the handle in an anti-clockwise direction. Releases a clutch and allows the chain to drop. Now if it gets stuck, that's because the whole lot hasn't topped. So a slight adjustment there with your hand will release it. To recover the chain, it's a simple case of turning the winch. If you haven't got enough leverage, you can put it into the outside and you've got more leverage this way. Now, this is interesting because as you see, we're turning and nothing is happening. By just simply resting your foot on the bottom, place the handle back into the center and then start to turn. Sometimes it's necessary to place your hand on the capstan there and turn the handle at the same time to make certain that the winch operates properly. When you've recovered the mud weight, place the catch in position and return the handle into the chain locker. For additional privacy inside the saloon, you'll notice on around the screen there's some little press stud. The screen cover, which you will find on the boat, secures to these and along each side. The deck fittings on the port side include the diesel water tank. This water tank is for the aft cabin and forward toilets, so this is not for domestic use, it's just pure and simply for the toilets. And you also have the pump out for the aft cabin on this side. This tonneau cover has been designed to protect the door and also the instrument panel, and should be used overnight and clearly when it's raining. On the upper helm station, the instrument panels are quite simple. There is simply the tachometer, which shows you the engine revs, and the rudder indicator, which will either tell you that your rudder is to port or to starboard. On the lower pod you'll see the depth gauge and speed log and the start and stop button for the engine. If you're starting the boat from this position, you turn the ignition on below and then press the start button, and always press the stop button to stop the boat before you turn the ignition key off. The bow thruster control is situated just to the side of the helm, and it has an on and off switch as well. Inside the boat you'll find the instrumentation panel for all the electrics. We'll have a look at that in a little bit more depth. So starting from left to right, you'll find you have the e-dispatcher heating control. Hope you won't need that too often, with an on and off switch at the very top. Below you'll find a temperature control, and once you've found the satisfactory temperature, the heating will turn on and off automatically. There is a situation with this particular type of heating that means that when you turn it off from this particular switch, please make certain that your heater switch has also been turned on, as it is currently. That when you turn the heating off, it will run for several minutes in order to cool the system down. If this doesn't happen, it will start to melt the inside of the equipment. So this is vital that this procedure is allowed to continue. This particular panel shows the generator, and to operate the generator, press the on button. This illuminates the hours meter, and eventually you will see the number of hours that the engine has run. There we are. This particular time is 187. Once it reaches this stage, all the checks that the computer that it has on board are complete, and now you can press the start button. This now means it's ready to generate electricity, and you'll see the voltmeter at the top there with the needle fluctuating, which is telling you that it has a generated source of power. The microwave doesn't particularly like generated sources, so it's often better to use the microwave from shore power. To turn the generator off, simply press the off button until you hear the engine die. On the outside of the boat, you should always ensure that there is water coming from the outlet on the generator. We'll have a look at that now. If that water is not flowing, then it means there's a blockage, and the engine must be turned off immediately by pressing the off button, and then contact our office as a matter of urgency before the engine is restarted, and we confirm that it's safe to use again. Going back to the control panel, all of the switches on here are in fact miniature circuit breakers. So starting with the top one here, battery box fan, if we switch that on, you will hear the battery fan operating, and what this is doing is actually removing any fumes and gases that accumulate inside the battery box itself. You'll find that these would happen more frequently in hotter weather, and to get rid of these means that there's less likelihood of any explosions that might take place, and removing any unpleasant fumes from the boat as well. The next one on the list is the engine room lights. Self-explanatory. All the other lights on the boat, the saloon lights, forward lights, aft lights, are used off of those circuit breakers. And the boat has an anchor light, which is at the very top of the boat. And below that is the navigation lights, which light port, starboard and steaming light. Going from the top to the centre then, the port wiper, starboard wiper. These operate the switches on the dashboard. And they go to a park position. Sometimes you'll find that the wipers, because they're so heavy, that they will overrun the park position. Don't worry about this if this does happen. To turn the wiper off, if it won't switch off from this switch, because it's just too wet to cope with it, because they're very heavy wipers, return to that position there and turn it off. Next you'll see the screen wash. This is a little pump that operates this particular button, and as you see runs water onto the screen. Next is the horn. Gauges, navigation instruments. Radio cassette.
Jono's all request lunch. 630-222 will say your favourite songs.
Oh, hello. Could I have any song, please?
To insert a CD, press this button and the CD slides into that particular slot there, and to remove it press that button and the CD will come out. To turn this off, there's an off button there, and if you turn this switch off you'll hear a confirmation note. That confirms that it's actually turned off. There's a cigar lighter switch there which operates the cigar lighter here. Also the one behind the TV. Further one under the external helm. Going to the right hand side again, starting at the top, you have the bilge pumps forward and aft. These should be checked every day by pressing and listening. This one is actually going to discharge some water which accumulates in this pump under the galley floor. That's empty now. There's a slight amount in there but nothing to worry about. These also have an automatic float switch, and this will rise with water level, which will then create a circuit and operate the pump. As it then lowers, the switch drops and cuts off the pump. Now we'll try the aft pump. This is situated in the engine room, and again water collects in there and this will discharge it. Before sailing, always check that the pumps are in fact operating. That's now emptied. Both showers have pumps, one there and one there. So we'll have a look in the forward shower, and as you look in the shower you'll see a little switch just above the WC. Turn this switch on and you immediately hear the pump operating. So before you shower, always check that this is working first, otherwise you could find yourself with a pump that's inoperating and a lot of water that you've got to bail out by hand. In the aft cabin, the switch for this one is in the top corner. The fresh water pump is required to operate any of the water systems from the taps on the boat, and that will provide pressure. So the moment the tap is turned on, you will then hear the pump start to operate. and the moment you turn it off it should stop immediately or shortly afterwards until the pressure has built up in it again. The fridge has its own switch which should obviously be left on, and the best position for the fridge control, temperature control, is around about where it is at 3:15, because this will stop the fridge from icing up, and also it will conserve your battery use as well. The galley fan is self-explanatory. Currently the switch for the socket operates the water heater switch, and the battery charger as well. When using the shore power, you'll notice that there's a trip here, so if it isn't operating, check that that's actually in the right position, which is shown at the moment. And there is a further shore power trip in the little cupboard below the unit, and that needs to be in this position as well, with the switch bar at the top as it is. There are also battery isolators in this cupboard for the engine, the domestics, and for the generator. The generator also has a cut-off supply switch for overload protection. That needs to be in the upright position as it is at the moment to operate the generator. There's a torch and the searchlight. There's also a spare belt for the vacuum cleaner in this little plastic bag. To transfer the helm position from the upright, the upper helm to the lower helm, this little knob here requires turning from this position to this position, and making certain that the switch is seated properly and engaged properly before you can operate the particular speed control, the more speed control, in either the upper helm or the internal helm. At the moment the boat is showing the internal helm is operable and the external helm is not. To reverse the situation, simply turn the switch into the upright position, and then the external helm will operate. Once again, once you've made this change, if you find that you've lost power or the upper helm is not operating, then go through the procedure again carefully. Both Morse controls must be in the neutral position before this action is carried out, otherwise they won't work properly. The TV and video consist of two units, the television itself and then a separate video. They're supplied by either 240 volts or battery power. Obviously, if you're in a marina, we recommend the use of the shore power as much as possible, and each has its own independent plug, so therefore the socket switches need to be turned on. These sockets need to be turned on with the plugs in place as well. These plugs at the front here are the 12 volt supplies. They need to be pushed down to the correct position, as they can be a little bit temperamental. On the top of the TV set you will see that we've got a little TV aerial which has a switch There's some batteries inside this which boost the signal. It's very difficult to gain a good signal on the Broads, particularly in the horning area. If you're using the video, please make certain that the lead from the video output is connected to the back of the TV into the aerial position there, otherwise you won't get a picture. As far as the toilets are concerned, they both operate in exactly the same way. To place water into the bowl, the lever must be turned to the left. Water can then be pumped in. Once you have sufficient water in place, press the lever to the right and then discharge the contents of the bowl. The toilets are checked prior to your allocation and are working correctly. It's imperative that only items that have been eaten are placed into the toilet, and certainly sanitary towels and condoms or anything else must not be placed into the toilet bowl, as a blocking will cost unblocking of the toilet will cost a minimum of £20 to actually carry that function out, and it could run into several hundreds of pounds if toilet pipes have become blocked into the holding tanks, which then have to be dismantled, and the boat could be out of operation for several hours as a result of that. Please make certain that this lever is always kept in the forward position, as if it's left in the backward position you will get water flowing into the bowl and discharge the contents of your water tank. It would also fill up the holding tank, which will necessitate you having to empty it sooner. Under the carpet floor in the saloon, the engine room is located, and this is the new water filter that's been fitted. To open the water filter, all that's needed is to turn the water filter, to unscrew it, lift it out, making certain that this rubber seal doesn't fall into the engine compartment. Remove the filter strainer itself, and as you will see, this is empty. If not, rinse it under the tap and wash away the contents, which is only likely to be some weed, etc., and carefully place it back in. Put the filter ring back in place gently, and then carefully turn the cap back, and this only needs to be finger tight. The only other item to check here is the dipstick, this red handle. Withdraw the dipstick. When the boat is cold, the oil wants to be in this position, which is approximately 1/4 of an inch below the hole at the upper end of the dipstick. Other than this, all that's required is an inspection to make sure that there's no water in the bilges. In this particular bilge is the pump that we spoke of earlier, so you'll always see some water in there. Finally, to start the engine, place the key in the ignition switch, hold it down and turn it here, hold it down for about 6 seconds, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, and turn the key until you hear the engine start. Then press this button here in and move the speed control forward, increasing the revs to 1200. This will then operate the alternator. If you don't do this, then the alternator will not charge the batteries, and even though the engine's running, it's not doing anything at all. After this stage, immediately go to the back of the boat and check that there is water coming out of the exhaust system. If there's no water coming out of the exhaust system, then there is a blockage, and the effects of this will eventually seize the engine. There has been times noted when a plastic bag or something of that nature has blocked the intake pipe underneath the boat, that's in the hull of the boat, and that prevents water going up through the raw water filter and into the and will not allow the engine to cool. Therefore the engine will eventually, the temperature will rise. There should be an alarm sound, however this may fail due to the overheating and the engine will actually seize. So it's necessary to constantly monitor your gauges to make sure they're operating properly and that there are no signs of overheating, and that there is always water coming out of the exhaust system. To stop the engine, press the stop button and then turn the ignition key off.